And also, of course, our prominent artists, Maestro, all the young and professional artists in Malaysia. Please welcome to Kenau+Ism 2022. Thank you very much for coming here. So our special guest today, Professor Jalaini and Hassan.
Sharing ya. Jadi kita akan sediakan soal jawab selepas sesi tersebut. Jadi dengan saya dan dukung Profesor Jalaini dan Hassan. Very good evening to everybody. Saya dimaklumkan saya buat dua bahasa. I'm so humble today to be here. Very humble. By such a warm community. Three different generations of artists, from student to intermediate and to professional. This is another experience, and the gatherings happen to be in this such a wonderful town. I've never been to Sungai Lembeh. This is my first time. It's an amazing place, and congratulations to the organizer. It's amazing. Saya terutang budi kerana diundang ke tempat yang begini istimewa, and I'm very honoured to be here among many familiar faces. Teman lama saya, Pak Aris, Dr. Rosli is here, and Abdullah Jod, good friends here. And I just met a group of Form 6 students. And it's so refreshing to see a young artist. Saya panggil young artist. And I'm here today, people, not as a guest or not as a professor, whatever you call it. I'm here today as an artist, as much as you all. We all here an artist. We share a common interest, satu bidang, satu minat, satu passion. And I asked the organizer a couple of times today, what is the topic of this talk? And nobody knows. And that's the best part. Nobody knows what we're going to talk today. I lagi tak tahu. I don't know what we're going to talk today, but that's the best part. I realized not knowing what to talk is the best part, because it depends so much on the audience. So today I just sat there and looked at the audience and see how the audience react and what kind of audience I have in front of me. I have a good friend, I have a new friend, I have an old friend, I have a young artist, young student. So I have to kind of adjust or tune my presentation to be to cater everybody if I can, if I'm allowed to share. Dan saya akan berkongsi beberapa slide. Slide yang it's not kena sidang, I'm getting more and more nervous. Nervous giving talk. Moderator have to be there. Saya cakap jangan lari. So he will be there. Teman dengan saya. This so-called bicara seni ataupun bicara sembang tentang art, talk about art casually, will be more on not the art. Ironically, it's not about the art. It's not about my art. In fact, if I talk about my work, it's going to be another session. So what I would like to share, maybe people, maybe if you bear with me, what we are all interested on is the common interest of all of us here. The common interest meaning, I'm looking at you all as an artist. Hari ini saya melihat tuan-tuan semua sebagai teman-teman seniman. That's the best thing. And based on that, saya akan berkongsi tentang the common interest among the seniman. The common interest. What makes us a seniman? What makes us a pelukis? Itu dulu. So it's fair. So I don't brag about my work so much. So I brag about who we are and how do we become this seniman thing. How do we become an artist? And why? What's the purpose of becoming an artist? And why we take this so seriously? Why are we so passionate about this? Why? Why the art? What's so big deal about becoming an artist? What makes you an artist? That's maybe the best part to discuss. So what I'm sharing basically is about my work, tapi not about my work. It's about me maybe being an artist. And that common interest probably shared among all of us here. Apa yang saya ada, sama macam tuan-tuan ada. Apa yang saya buat, sama yang macam tuan-tuan buat. Cuma tidak sedar sahaja. Okay? Okay. I don't know whether I make myself clear. Boleh ya? Bear with me ya. Oh my goodness. Steady. Okay, maybe some of you would have seen the presentation. What makes us an artist, I guess, is the fact that kita berkarya. We make art. And first and foremost, before we make art, it's something else we need. Apa yang kita perlukan sebelum kita membuat? Sebelum kita bertindak menjadi seorang pelukis. How do we call ourselves pelukis? Tanpa bermula dekat mana? Siapa bagi darjah kebesaran ni? Siapa yang menobatkan title ni? Siapa yang menobatkan? Kalau arkitek kita nak ambil apa? Ambil undang-undang, ambil dia punya exam. Architect need to attend certain exam in order to qualify them to be an architect. A doctor need to have certain practice. And you go to the clinic and see the degree and the diplomas that qualifies him or her to be a medical practitioner. You take any career, there's always some form of recognition that qualifies the person to be who they are. But an artist, who appoint you to be an artist? Pandai-pandai je Zaki angkat diri sebagai artis. Siapa bagi pun tak tahu. We don't know. He said he's an artist. Okay, we all believe him. So he's an artist. So that's a mystery about becoming. This profession is so mysterious. Nobody knows. Of course, you have a qualification. You have a master. You have a degree. You have a PhD in art. But some people on the street, they make beautiful art without any qualification. And so they're as qualified as you are. So that's another mystery. So maybe on that basis, we have to find some common ground that we all agree today. If we have this, then we are an artist. Ini saya buat sendirilah formula ni. Tidak ada pun dalam buku. I make my own analysis or I make my own conclusion. So in order to qualify ourselves as an artist, we have to make art. We have to make art. Otherwise, how can you become an artist? We have to make art. In order to make art, you have to have what? In order to make art, what do you need? Kalau myself, I need a premise. I need a proper premise. The studio lah. So I'm going back to the studio. In fact, studio is some form of recognition, some form of a premise that allows you to qualify yourself as an artist. But people say, what if I don't have a studio? Can I be an artist? Of course. Sometimes the laptop is a studio. So don't take studio physically as a physical space. Sometimes kilang batu is a studio. Sometimes in the science laboratory can be a studio. So meaning you need a premise. You need a premise where, this is interesting, a premise where the theory of your art making and the practice of your art making bertembung, collided between these two processes. And this collision needs a space, which is a studio. And from the studio, you can tell so much about the artist. In the studio, you can tell so much about the work. In the studio, you can tell so much about the process of making. So that's my topic of the discussion today. If you bear with me, I prove my point nanti. Saya akan buktikan poin-poin yang saya cakap ni. The studio is the premise of your knowledge. Without that, how do you know that you're an artist? How do you know you're making? How do you going to trace your making? How do you going to trace your idea? Where is this this so-called ideation process take place. It has to be in the studio. It has to be in the studio. So that brings me to this slide. So bear with me a bit, because this slide is all about my work, my studio. I cannot get somebody else. If I take somebody else's case study, it's not me. I just borrow. This is just a secondary data. This is a primary data. This is what happened in actual space, actual time, and actual situation. Nampak ya? Okay, I think I've given this presentation quite a bit, but I'm going to skip. I won't go to academy. If a studio is a premise where you gain the knowledge of what? Knowledge of what? People from Form 6, knowledge of what? This is a studio, and you make your art in the studio. What kind of knowledge do you gain? What kind of knowledge do you gain? Practice. Yes, the practice of making art. That kind of knowledge. If you go to the courtroom, the practice of becoming a lawyer. If you go to the medical clinic, the practice of becoming a medical doctor. If you practice in the studio, the knowledge of practicing of making art. So that's probably the discussion, not so much about how you make your art, but how the premise itu ruang yang menentukan kerjaya anda sebagai lukis. Make sense? Hope it makes sense. So, but mind you, this is the irony of it. When you produce the artwork in the studio, tempat yang gelap, yang busuk, yang kotor, yang berselerak, and such a chaos in the studio where the artwork was born. And where did the artwork end up?
Gallery.
At the gallery, so contrasting to the place it was produced. That's the irony of it. And the worst part is, your artwork cannot remain in the studio. If your artwork remains in the studio forever, something is wrong. Something's wrong. You're not functioning. Because the ecology is not there. You produce the artwork and leave it in the studio forever. Then the ecology doesn't work. So you produce the artwork in the studio, you take it to the gallery, bought by collector, you go to the collector house, and collector display it in his house or museum or the gallery. So at the end, that's where this artwork function. It stopped there, kan? But nobody talk about what happened here. Nobody talk about what happened here. Rarely people discuss about this sacred space. Why? Because it's private. It's private. It's so exclusive to the artist. It's like a confinement. Tempat yang dipanggil forbidden. You don't bring people to the studio. Rarely you bring people to the studio. Sebab apa? Habis rahsia perniagaan. Abdullah Joe cakap. Habis rahsia perniagaan. Habis rahsia saya. Dia orang tahu. So that's what people thought. And rarely artists bring people to the studio. And in the studio also, you sort of know a certain ada tertib dia. Tertib satu. There's an order. There's a certain peculiarity in the studio that you cannot share with other people. Nobody knows what happened in the studio. Tidak ada dalam textbook pun. Sebab studio Dola John lain, studio saya lain, studio Dr. Rusli lain, studio Pak Arif lain. Depend on the nature of your work. So it's very organic. And nobody discuss. Because there's no specific standard.